Hello friends, it's John Lone King again, and here I am with my next episode of From Profits to Properties, where I help you with tactics and tips to help build your profits to go beyond your expectations in your business, and then take those profits and build long-term wealth through real estate. So every single week I talk about a topic that has to do with business and a topic that has to do with real estate and wealth building through real estate. And today I want to talk about starting small and winning big. Start small, win big. And it's really about keeping your focus on what is in front of you and what is attainable today while still having the vision down the road of what you can build in the future. So I'm going to rewind and tell you a quick story. So I've been in the lending industry since 2001. And in 2011, a lot of things happened. My wife and I were having our third child. I changed companies and I moved. We relocated from one market to another that was about an hour away from the market that I was working in. And the part of that story I want to talk about really has to do with the part about building a business within the market I moved to. So I moved to Roseville, California, but most of my business was in Lodi, about an hour south. And in 2011, I said, you know what? I need to build business in Roseville so that I can be closer to home. And I did nothing about it. Literally did nothing about it. And it wasn't until about 2017, so 6 years later, that I finally said, you know what? I absolutely have to do something. And I really made the choice. I just have to start. I have to start by setting up an office here within another office that was already here. So I found a way to partner with some people that were already here, keep my overhead a lot lower. I wasn't abandoning the business that I had in Lodi, but I was focused on how do I start small and what do I need to do? What are the first steps I have to take? Because the problem is I was paralyzed. I was paralyzed because I didn't know what step to take. And it took me 6 years to take the first step. But what I'll tell you is, once I decided I was taking that first step, I had a very, very clear vision on what that next step was going to look like. And more importantly, what the end result was that I was chasing. So I had never been a big proponent of vision planning or picturing what you want to come true and having it come true. I thought that was just mumbo jumbo that didn't really work. And this was the first time in my professional career that I truly sat down and put together the picture, the vision of what it was going to look like, what my business was going to look like in the next 5 years. And it solidified for me something that was taught to me through coaching that I never really thoroughly understood until this moment. And that is that typically we overestimate what we can get done in 1 year, but we significantly underestimate what we can get done in 5 years. And that was the case for me. I had looked at it and said, you know what, I absolutely overestimated what I could get done in a year. And I thought, hey, I want my business to look like this a year from now. And I was a bit disappointed when it didn't get there. But I had also drew a very, very clear vision of what I wanted things to look like. And it was about 3 years later that I hit that vision. And I actually wanted to have an office, a physical office that was my own office in that market. I wanted to have 2 team members working there and be able to spend at least 3 days a week in the market close to my home. And having that vision, starting small with just the first steps, but having that vision, I ended up building that sooner than I thought. That was my 5-year vision, and I achieved it at the 3-year mark. And I remember my grand opening at my new office, and I literally sat there looking around the office while we were hosting the grand opening ribbon cutting. And I thought, you know what? I've literally achieved exactly what I painted in that picture 3 years ago. And I achieved it 2 years faster than anything that I had expected. And a big part of that was just being able to picture it. Because here's what I figured out. I figured out that if I had a vision in my mind of where I was going to end up, then I would make decisions along the way that guided me towards that vision. It guided me towards making those things happen. And so maybe you might be in a situation where you're saying, you know what, I've got a 9-to-5 job and I want to create my own business, but I don't know where to start. But I'm ready. I want to do it, but I'm really afraid to pull the trigger, or I'm afraid of doing the wrong thing. And the truth is, you just have to do something. The story I just told you about what I went through in shifting my business from Lodi to Roseville, I still have a lot of business in the Lodi market, even to this day. But It took me really having to stop and say, I have to take the first step. I have to take a step forward. And it took me 6 years to take that first step. 6 years to take that first step. And so if you're sitting in that place where you're like, hey, I want to start a business, I want to grow a business, you want to start with some vision planning. And the way that I learned to do that is to simply write a letter to yourself from the version of you in the future. And so you'd say, Dear John, it is right now 1 year in the future, and I want to recap for you where I'm at in my life, where I'm at in my business, and what has happened over the last year. And you walk through a recap of essentially what's changed, what's grown, where your business is different, where you've improved, what your staff looks like, what your revenue and profits look like. And you put together that picture. You paint a picture. You tell a story about what your life, your family, your business looks like. And then you do another version 5 years from now. But you have to really let loose when you do the 5-year version, because we will underestimate what you can get done in 5 years. But if you do that 5-year vision and you paint the picture, you write a letter from yourself 5 years from now, you literally could change anything about your life, about your business, about your finances. Anything can change in 5 years if you just take all the steps necessary to make it happen. You have the opportunity to make significant change, but it starts small. It starts with small steps of you creating the vision and then letting your subconscious guide you to make that vision happen, and recognize that it is normal to overestimate what you can get done in 1 year and significantly underestimate what you can get done in 5. Gang, thanks for listening to the first segment. Hang tight here for a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back, and I'll talk about the next segment of the podcast, which has to do with building wealth through real estate. And we're going to talk about starting small when it comes to properties. A lot of people have purchased condominiums or thinking about buying condominiums, and I'm going to talk to you about some financing strategies to make those pay off for you in the long run. Hold on tight, and we'll be right back. Hello, friends. Just want to interrupt our podcast really quickly to talk to you about owning properties in an LLC. It is a phenomenal strategy to protect your assets against any type of a claim that comes from a property that you own. The problem is conventional financing doesn't allow it. So most people who own investment properties have bought them either in their personal name or in a family trust, which exposes you and your family to liability and lawsuits because you're the owner of the investment property. And if something happens there, they can come after you. You need to talk to your attorney about the pros and cons of using an LLC. You need to talk to your tax guy about the pros and cons of using an LLC. But you for sure need to know about the option that I have available that will allow you to purchase investment properties in an LLC instead of being in your personal name, because it is a game changer in protecting you and your family's financial future. All right, friends, thanks for coming. Thanks for sticking around for the second half of the segment. And today, our second half of the segment we're going to talk about is condominium financing. Now, I'm actually going to fast forward, not to people who are buying condominiums for the first time, but people who own condominiums right now. And I will tell you, a lot of my clients, a lot of investors that I've talked to own one or two or multiple condominiums because it's maybe the first property that they bought. Maybe it was, for a lot of people, it's their accidental rental. I bought a condominium because it was the first place that I lived in, that I could afford to buy, and then I kept it as a rental. Other investors that I know have been buying rental properties that are non-warrantable condos. Now, a non-warrantable condo is a property that doesn't meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's guidelines. And there's a lot of them out there. Like, there's unfortunately getting to be a longer and longer list of condominiums. But here's the thing, you had to pay cash for them. And I have lots of clients who have paid cash for these condominiums, and they've paid well over the years, but now they're stuck with an asset that they don't necessarily want to sell, but they can't leverage to buy something else. I've had 3 clients in the last 30 days who have come to me with this problem. And they've said, John, I've got a condominium and I want to tap into the equity in it, but everybody's telling me I can't because it doesn't meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's guidelines. And I was able to help them to see a program that we have that actually allows you to do a first or home equity line of credit on a condominium. And we don't care, hear me, we don't care whether the condominium meets Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac's guidelines. I had a client last month They had a condo that was worth $300,000. We did an automated appraisal, so they didn't need to get it appraised. We verified their income literally through just looking at their bank statements and verifying their deposits. And this is for somebody who was actually a W-2 employee. So it was a unique program and a unique way we put it together. This condo is worth $300,000. They pulled out $200,000 as a first mortgage at around 8.5%. Now that is really low when you think about what the cost is for hard money loans, which is really the only thing people can do on these properties. And instead they were able to tap into it, and they literally got their money 5 days later. So it was super fast. It was super easy. And it's one of the things that I want to implore anybody, if you or anybody you know owns a condominium that you've got as a rental property, even if it's a primary residence, and you're saying, you know what, I've tried to tap into the equity in this because I want to use the equity in this property as leverage, as down payment money to buy my next investment property. That is a typical process of pulling money from one investment property to leverage and buy your next one, and it allows you to continue to grow your portfolio. The problem is you aren't able to tap into the money on those condos. Now you are. So this is a huge opportunity for people who have condominiums, especially if they're non-warrantable, don't meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's guidelines. There are ways now you can tap into those properties, because thinking about leverage, thinking about how you can take the money from one property and put it into buying another property is the fastest way to increase the number of properties that you own. Now, I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, but I will tell you that I'm recording this right now in June of 2025, and the market is shifting. The opportunity to pick up units right now is as good as it's been in a long time. Now, I don't know what the future is going to bring. We can listen in a year and you might say, oh my gosh, that was a short opportunity, or John, prices have dropped significantly more. It doesn't really matter, because the truth is it's dollar cost averaging. Buy a property here, buy a property there, buy a property again down the road. You can't buy everything at the bottom of the market. But right now, you've got opportunities that didn't exist 6 months ago. There's a buyer that I have right now that's looking at condominiums. The property's listed at $250,000. He offered $220,000. The listing agent called me and said, hey, how qualified is this buyer? Is everything good? I've talked to him about the buyer's qualifications. And then the listing agent said, yeah, unfortunately, they came on $30,000 low. But the truth is, this market is really slow right now. And there's nobody looking to buy these condos that we've seen. And we haven't had any activity in the last 45 days that we have been on the market. And so I'm going to talk to the seller and see if there's a way that we can make this happen, because I think it's in the seller's best interest to try and make this offer work. That is directly from a listing agent. That is the market that we are in right now, summer of 2025. It could be that the market gets better for buyers. It could be the market gets worse. But the truth is, it is a good market. It's a market that you can negotiate in. It's a market that you can find deals in that we couldn't find 6 months or a year or 2 or 5 years ago. So this is an opportunity right now to start looking at picking up properties and picking up units, and trying to find the money for the down payment to make that happen is critical. So guys, I really appreciate you listening. I really appreciate you joining every single week. And please, if you like the information, leave a review wherever it is that you're listening to this, and make sure that you share this with anybody that you know that could use this information, whether they're looking to build a business, they have an entrepreneurial spirit and they want to become a business owner, whether they already own a business, whether they're just looking to grow their real estate portfolio. There's something in here for a lot of different people, and I'd love your help in helping to get this podcast in front of more people. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.